Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we kept going with the Tide of Blood storyline, so we're heading to a Stormwatcher's station and dealing with that. And yeah, we'll just head back to the station, the Fort of Echoes in the Guelad system, and continue on.
You're in the right place. This corridor leads to the armory, one of the most well-guarded areas in any Stormwatcher outpost.
So there has been a lot of gaming news lately, including Activision did some they said some interesting things in their SEC filings, pointing out that Overwatch and Call of Duty, the eSports sections, are facing headwinds. Which, for anyone who doesn't fully understand that, it's not growing like it's supposed to. They're actually struggling a bit. And there's reports of some of the investors lawyering up, because they were told they'd be raking in money hand over fist, and that's not happening. Some of these people bought in. That was annoying. Controller unplugged. But, people invested 6-7 figures. So you're looking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into these franchises. This, I'm not surprised, especially when it comes to, like, Overwatch. People kind of got hustled when it came to Overwatch and the Pro League there. And God knows Blizzard can't stay out of a controversy, and then they just release a character who is gay or some part of the LGBT community anytime a controversy comes up, to such a degree that it became a meme that has happened repeatedly. So it's not even really a meme, it's just satirizing reality. But, so this issue is arising, and I'm not surprised. I think esports in general has been kind of struggling, part because there's no outlet. Last time I saw esports on TV was years ago, and it was one, I think, Heroes of the Storm match. And it was on ESPN, and people got butthurt. They're sitting there all, why do we have to watch this? I should be watching football, even though there was no football on at the time. They were just angry that they had to watch some nerd shit, and rather than just be like, oh, it's not for me, or give it a shot, their impulse was to just get unnecessarily angry.
Decontamination protocol active.
This area was supposed to be untouched.
Despicable filth, tainting everything that is sacred. Kill them, Inquisitor. Kill them.
But so, I think a lot of this comes from, like, Silicon Valley Bank, all that stuff collapsing, because we see that with, like, Vice's Waypoint, which was their gaming journalism thing that I don't know a single soul who actually read their stuff. I never did, because it was crap. And the people working on it were a lot of the same people who, I mean, they still do cause problems at Kotaku. So why would I want to read their crap elsewhere? But I think the investors kind of drying up has left this industry in a rut. The fact that they don't have a place to broadcast. Comcast absolutely fumbled the bag there, because they could have made G4 a gaming thing of like, hey, we broadcast just esports and all this stuff, instead of being like, hey, remember Attack of the Show? We got that. And then just sat around thinking that's going to carry an entire brand. But I also think, and this is just my speculation here, but I think part of it is we've just had the same game, like the same games as competitive for so long.
I need a new area scan.
Like yeah, you need to have something that can last a while, but at the same time, you need something new. Nobody wants, like, people talk about X-Defiant, and they're like, oh, X-Defiant's so good. Okay, whatever, I got my own opinions on that. But people being like, oh, it'll have competitive and all this stuff. It'll be faster-paced COD. That's all it is, when you really break it down for a competitive scene. The people who want to watch that, because it's effectively a hybrid because of the abilities of Overwatch and COD.
Captain,
The people who want to watch it will watch it,
Yes.
but a lot of the people are already kind of, that
Well,
market's
some trouble on
captured
the
by other
bridge.
games.
You really need to keep your warhound on a tighter leash.
watch your tone, Captain. And tell me what happened to you.
Caius Thorne is what happened to me. Since you left, he's been showing growing signs of agitation. Suddenly, he started to act violently. He forced the tech priest to set the teleportarium coordinates to the heart of Armory, and he just left.
Chaos Thorn is down here. I need his location immediately.
He is deep in the bowels of this level. You will need to find the closest teleportarium and jump to the coordinates I'm sending you.
I'll be on my way.
I cannot tolerate this kind of disrespectful behavior on my ship. Not even from an angel of death.
But yeah, it's just, there's nothing to really capture a new part of the market, so people aren't interested. I think, I've said it before, I'll say it again, larger scale fights. Doesn't have to be, as much as I'd love it, to be like MAG, where it's 128 man teams. I would kill for that to be competitive, but your cash payouts are going to be so low that it would essentially be like a cottage industry for tournaments. But I think maybe 20, 24 man teams, yeah, you're still going to have pretty trash payouts, but you integrate a little bit of light vehicle support, I think you got something going. Squads of 6, squads of 4, something like that. I think you can do a lot. It's just a matter of someone making the game and just trying to get a community. Because we see a ton of games where people do pseudo-competitive, or they do like high-level PvP and stuff, but there's nothing there. There's not... I mean, there are quote-unquote tournaments for Tarkov, but there's not a competitive scene. Nobody's a professional
Sergeant,
in the sense of competitive Tarkov player. There are people who are professional because they stream it a lot. And that is a different kind of thing. It's like the difference between being a comedian and a clown. You both make people laugh, but you're different things. I think competitive gaming is in a very weird state. And I don't know where it's gonna go. The one thing I will say that I'm kind of actually excited about is the effect it'll have on game design. Because we've had this for, what, almost a decade now? Where every game tries to be some eSports ready at launch, hyper competitive 6v6, whatever the hell. And they're not working. We see it time and again. These ideas, they don't work because they're not original. Yeah, not every game needs to reinvent the wheel. Not everything needs to be some revolution in design. People who think every game needs to be don't understand the market, don't understand games. They just want something shiny and new.
teleport beacon in
But what I think is there needs to be
Use the
a certain
coordinates.
level
Thorne
of
is in the
understanding with
medical
that.
ward.
And I think a big thing is you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you just need to remix what's out there. I will always stand by it. Section 8. the dynamic combat mission system. By God, someone needs to use it. Maybe you don't name it the DCMS, but you create a similar system. You turn domination matches into very interesting setups.
Fluctuations peaking in the target zone. Motive force dispersion on the increase. War anomalies inbound. Etheric disruption scanners are also picking up amplified warp energies, tearing apart the central hub of the station.
I'll need its exact location as soon as possible.
And a big thing with like the DCMS is you could have a tournament mode set for it. There's a lot you could do. It's just whether studios do it. And I think the trend chasing has kind of limited creativity. It's limited people's willingness to look back at old games because it's this stupid rationale of, oh, well, that's the past. We can't look to the past. The past is in the past. We gotta look to the future. Because the future is where ideas are. And it's like, nah, just look around. There's a lot of cool stuff that we left behind for various reasons. Some ideas didn't work out just because the game didn't sell. Doesn't mean the idea was bad. Or I always refer to like Dust 514. Great game, came out at a terrible time. The free-to-play market was relatively new for consoles. People were still learning how to really monetize things. We were caught right then in that maelstrom of games still trying to do loot boxes, and that was seen as a viable method of making money. And even Killing Floor 2 decided that was a viable way. And everybody had to learn, hey, that is a very, very, very specific way of making money that requires a lot of effort and a large community already following before it can succeed. And it's highly frowned upon. That, if things changed, games would be different. But a lot of this kind of comes to a head also with stuff like I said last episode, I believe, about the cost of games. Game prices keep going up. You're trying to make more and more money off these things. It becomes tougher and tougher. But we'll have to wait and see what the future really holds for that aspect of gaming, because I don't think competitive gaming and esports are dead. People are going, oh, it's the end, or are all gonna disappear. I think your best case scenario is actually the worst case scenario, because let's get the worst version out of this. The worst thing that can happen is large tournaments and these large franchises fail. Teams like Minnesota Rocker and all these kind of franchise things go away. These gaming facilities shut down. Because I think 100 Thieves, I talked about their Cash App compound, Doodlebug building, whatever. That shut down, I believe, recently, or at least their, I think it's their, like, content house. I hate that term. But, like, their streamer or YouTuber house, that got ended. And I think part of it is the investment's running dry. How do you make money off these? You can't tell me you're running in the positive, and now that things are kind of going south, all the bean counters are starting to look at it and go, hey, where's the money? Where'd the money go?
This is far.
Okay, anything good? No. What do we get from here? Okay. Actually not terrible. Better on a melee build that can inflict bleed, but acceptable. I like getting these relic construct items now. I just realized I forgot to go over the best and worst case scenarios. I just kind of skipped them. But, guys, shut up.
We will discuss that incident some other time.
Right. But you must accept that I am an Adeptus Astartes. We go where we wilt. We slay who we wilt. Let the Emperor judge the righteousness of our deeds.
During this mission, I will be the judge of what shall be done. Right now, we shall destroy the warp gate, for instance.
Okay. But the best and worst case scenarios. Worst case scenario, everything goes away. We're brought down to just little indie tournaments. I don't think that's exactly the worst thing. I think kind of bringing the community aspect back to the community is actually a good thing. I'm kind of tired of this Lord-like mentality some pro players have, where it's like, oh, I'm so good, and they can't really be challenged because you have to go into tournaments and you have to be invited to these big tournaments, as opposed to like Smash, where a lot of them you can just pay to sign up. A lot of the smaller ones, and if you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're not. You can challenge the best in your area, or you can challenge the worst. But I think that's probably the best option. The best and worst. But otherwise, we're looking at a potential collapse, but I think it's really just knocking out the big tournaments. And we're knocking out the bigger games. But at that point, if they're smart, and it seems like they're already, like Activision's already pivoting that way, is implementing the skins of like, oh, you have your rank and you get a different skin per each season or whatever. I think that's the safest bet. Because then you get people doing competitive, you get that flex of rank, and you can kind of move on. It keeps the competitive scene kind of alive, but I don't think it's nearly as what it used to be. And I don't think it ever will be what it was 10, 15 years ago. Full stop. I don't think it is possible to return. I think things have changed too much, and I guess that's kind of okay. But I guess the big thing is it can't really come back because everything's corporate. This isn't the days of old. We've been in a new era for a long time. But all in all, this is interesting, kind of seeing this aspect of the industry take a hit.
Tech Priest,
Because this was competitive was not the area I thought would take the hit first. I thought we would see... I'm not even sure where would really go down first. I figured in gaming it would probably be more the hyper-narrative, story-driven, like What Remains of Edith Finch and those other walking simulators go down first. But I guess those come out so sporadically now that they're not here enough to actually take that hit. What's funny is what will never die is that cottage industry of competitive. Prime example is Dawn of War Elite Mod. Elite Mod still has people who do shoutcasts for the game. Indrid casts on YouTube, he does a lot. There's still, for Age of Empires, you have T90 official. Like, the fact that T90 still does Age of Empires, and that there's enough of a Age of Empires 2 specifically community, says a lot. Guile, he does... what is it? Supreme Commander. I think he does, like, Subcom 1. Gray Shot does Company of Heroes, though I kind of get tired of his stuff because he puts his face cam in, and I guess it might be because people started stealing content. How you can really get away with that, I don't know. It seems like it's pretty easy to instantly catch someone if they're stealing a shoutcast, but some people, I guess, are stupid. But of course I kind of stopped watching because I just don't see a value in a caster's face. Like, I don't need commentary where I see the person. I want to focus on the game. Especially because I've seen some casters, and they're just like some dude slovenly dressed. No, like, green screen or anything, so he's just like in a corner in the middle at the bottom of the screen. It's like, dude, just get off the screen. I like looking at unit cards, I like looking at all that stuff. It's kind of annoying just seeing a dude's face just like slack-jawed looking at you. But regardless, there's a lot of the smaller casting and the smaller competitives. And those are people who just play for fun. Some might stream. You never know. I mean, hell, that was how it was with even smaller COD competitors. I remember a few years back watching guys do, like, oh god, what is it? Iron Sight? Do competitive for that and do really small tournaments. Guys do Black Squad. Even some stuff for, like, Warface. Not Breakout because nobody cares about that. But, like, standard run-of-the-mill Warface. People played. And there was a small tournament scene and small competitive, and I thought that was cool. And I think a big thing would be, like what Smash has done, we have to have tournament organizers who are part of the community. We could do a Mortal Kombat tournament, but you get local companies to sponsor it. You know, you do... Let's use Minnesota. Gotta rep the home. Do a Minneapolis... hell, let's do a Minneapolis Mortal Kombat... let's do a MKX tournament. Okay, well, you could get local businesses to chip in money. Make it, you know... Up Down presents... You know... like whatever, Mortal Kombat X 2023. Okay, you know, Up Down put some money in for advertisement. You could have... I'm trying to think of other places, Minneapolis, St. Paul area, burger joint Snuffies. Could have them... there was Psycho Susie's, places like that. Businesses, restaurants, whatever. Yes, it's not going to be as big and fancy, but you can grow the community that way. And I think that's a lot cooler than whatever we've had now. Cash App kind of stuff. Like, it just feels weird. And I think for smaller companies, it does a lot better for them because it's that advertisement, one, to a local community, and two, let's say you do stream it. okay, you have this Minneapolis MKX tournament. You stream it, a bunch of people see it. Maybe some people come in for one of the anime conventions, or maybe they want to compete. Maybe they're in Wisconsin or South Dakota, and they're like, hey, I want to compete in this tournament because maybe the state doesn't have one. Maybe their big one is later in the year, later in the month, and they got a window where they can show up.
Fluctuation reaching critical levels.
There you go.
Immediate
And
evacuation
it's
advised.
advertising there. It's a lot of potential. I just think it just someone has to take the initiative. Not me. I don't know how to do it.
Status is a valuable tool, but the calculated risk.
I'm afraid this equation is beyond your understanding.
Kind of wish I was competent enough to run tournaments, but if you follow stuff like I do, I follow the Smash tournaments. Less of who competes and more of I just see a lot of the drama that comes out. And some of those TOs, they're not the brightest folks. Not to mention there's also the aspect of, at least for Nintendo games, Nintendo is not very friendly with the community. And I think that kind of hits a weird spot. Because I remember that, if you follow it, if you remember the Panda Cup stuff that happened, where people were like, oh, the Panda TO is trying to strong-arm other tournaments and all this stuff. And it turned out the guy wasn't. He was trying to get along with the other tournaments, but kind of be like, hey, we can kind of pool together and create a bigger tournament circuit. But people misconstrued things and got angry. And that's one concern, is just people misinterpreting things or just mismanagement. Because that's the big bane of small competitive scenes, is it's a lot easier to mismanage because the odds are the people in charge aren't that competent.
Just wait and I will.
But that's more or less it. Just the tournaments are in a weird spot, and the solutions are still kind of weird.
I'm aware that the
Hey, we finished that first section of
Inquisitor.
Tide of Blood. Do we get anything cool? Not really. No more modules. Did get another passive, so we'll just whip that into dots at this point. Probably want to save that for absolute last, because the poison damage isn't as good for me. Even though I can apply it, I'm just not doing it at the moment. Whole heap of nothing. Oh well. That is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.